Okay, I'll be going over the Rox Jag games that occurred 6 days ago on the 24th of March. It's currently March 30th. Let's get straight into it. I missed I think I missed most of last week's Korean split. But it was, I guess it was the last week, so they're going to be doing playoffs next week. So I'm a little out of the loop, but I'm sure not much has changed, and this is still on patch 8.5. This is not on 8.6. There's no Shirelias. There's no Jin Ginsus. Nothing too exciting of a difference. First ban Chaya, still one of the most broken aces in the game. First ban Scion. This is actually post nerf, but it's still viable as mid and top, and has a lot of control and super high base damages. Built the team, Gangplank, standard ban because he's able to affect the map so much, as well as become a late game hyper carry. Varus also a late game hyper carry. This is pre Ginsu's nerf, or well, pre Ginsu's change rather than nerf. And forgive me that I don't closely watch LCK in terms of which players play what. So I do not know which of these bans are target bans, but they all seem pretty standard in terms of patch 8.5. The Azir as well, considered god tier. In fact, S tier, A tier, S tier, S tier, A tier in this patch, and that's also S tier. So fairly standard bans. First pick Swain. New Swain has a lot of map control and very good mid game that's abusable, and then could be flexed into the mid or top role. This could be responded to with jungle ADC or jungle support. Caitlyn usually is pretty good into Swain. Sejuani also is a very high priority jungler, but the Skarner is open without the Olaf on the table. It's just that if they grab Skarner here, they want to grab possibly Tahm Kench to deny it from Rox. If they deny Tahm from Rox and they deny the Olaf, then they're not going to have any response to the Skarner throughout the early game and the mid game. Rox see that there is a Jhin on the table. They're probably going to respond with Ezreal. Ezreal Tahm Kench is their safest lane, as well as it's not necessary for them to run a hyper carry as they have a Swain who could be mid or top. Instead, they want to contest the lane pressure between Jhin and Caitlyn. While Ezreal is the best lane into Jhin, Caitlyn can still provide a lot of early game pressure, as well as win the lane due to the range advantage, assuming that she has a support. So this means they might opt into a range support. Karma is definitely an option. And there it is. They may or may not lock that in. Now, what's particularly interesting about the Rox team comp right now is that Karma can be rotated into the mid lane, and Swain can be rotating into the top lane. So it's very unclear to Jin Air what Rox is doing, but it's very clear to Rox what Jin Air is doing. Jin Air want to respond with Thresh. This will give them pressure in the lane, as well as kind of signifies that Skarner is going to be wanting to put a lot of pressure in the bottom lane, or Thresh could be putting a lot of pressure into the mid lane by roaming up, and Skarner will flank that. Because when you pick Thresh, you want to play around them as much as you can. So assuming that Wraith can actually hit hooks anywhere on the map and complete roam securely, then they can do a lot with it. But if it's not going to have pressure in lane or pressure roaming, it's going to be pretty useless. Anyway, Braum taken off the board, so they respect that Karma could be a mid pick. Camille taken off the board as one of the strongest top lane split pushers. S tier, A tier. Camille is actually specifically better with Gangplank off the table. And the Sejuani has been taken out. Rox have yet to pick jungler, but they have a lot of options. They have Zac, they have J4, and they have... They could go with something that could abuse the Skarner, or at least try to abuse the Skarner if they have all this early game pressure, because they have a guaranteed pushing bottom lane if they ruin Caitlyn Karma, and a strong mid lane with, or mid or top with the Swain, so they could run something like Kha'Zix, which is particularly strong. And they go with the Ornn ban, who is also A tier, S tier. It's kind of hard to put Ornn in tier. Pretty hit or miss. Ryze, definitely the strongest pick on the table that they can get from mid, allowing them to try and converge onto Jhin, which means that this is only going to further pinpoint to Rox that they are going to be playing for this Jhin. Ryze is going to want to push the lane and then roam into the bot. Ryze also has a decent matchup against Karma and Swain, although not supremely beneficial. Very doable. The Tahm Kench is secured. Tahm Kench was not banned out in the favor of Braum, which is interesting. However, I don't know if it was a mistake. I think I would have been Tahm Kench because you're running Skarner and you want to have as many opportunities as possible. Whereas the Tahm Kench really denies all those opportunities. And with a Karma mid, Skarner's going to have a lot of trouble getting onto her before he gets any kind of items. Even with Predator, he'll have trouble catching up to her. So now Jin Air have a few options. I mean, I don't recommend Darius here because they need... Okay, bot lane requires Thresh to be able to be proactive and to be successful in order for them to put pressure, as well as rotations from Ryze, which is not really going to happen until about the 7-minute mark, which makes it really interesting that they want to opt into something like Darius, or they're even hovering it, because they need something that's going to be able to contest the Swain, and they want to play on the top side for the beginning of the game, because between the 0 and the 7-minute mark, they have absolutely no win condition in the mid and the bot lane. Which means that Skarner has to camp top in that early game. So picking Darius here is a very risky pick, and that isn't going to really pay off that much if they aren't able to find openings. Whereas something like Gnar or it's hard because there's not a lot of picks in top that go into Swain, but anything that's reliable that can both escape, not get picked on, as well as not get destroyed by Swain in the 1v1. But with Camille and Gangplank off the table, this really limits their options. Darius was buffed in patch 8.4, which makes him somewhat viable. And if he does go Black Cleaver, Sterox Gauge, I think he can dual Swain, depending on how far into the build Swain is, or if Swain is not accelerated, then he has a decent matchup, especially if he sticks with the Ignite in that part of the game. But this still strikes odd to me, because if they go with Darius here, and I don't believe they win that 2v2 in top, I am pretty sure they lose, which means that they will not have a win condition in ganking mid, they won't have a win condition in ganking top, and they can't really help bot until after the 7-minute mark, which makes this game really hard for Jin Air. However, upon closer look at the Rox team, if you split this into 3 lanes now, they actually have 3 lanes that want to push. It's just that 2 of the lanes are incredibly difficult to gank for the Skarner, so that they're not worried about that pushing. So it actually is incentivized for the Jarvan to match the top lane, because if he matches the top lane and leaves these 2 lanes pushing, then these 2 lanes are going to develop a CS lead naturally, and Jarvan will make sure that Jin Air is not able to provide to find openings that they need, especially if they lock in the Darius. Let me just see what they actually choose. Okay, this strikes me as more normal. They chose to lock in the Gnar, which made it a little bit better for their team comp. Now they have follow-up engage, and they have the reliability of not having a top lane that's going to get destroyed. He will have openings when he's in mini Gnar, but if he communicates well with Skarner and Skarner's top side when he isn't able to charge Mega Gnar, then then Rox cannot secure that dive. However, it still stays the same that Rox will leave Jarvan in the top side. Let me draw this out just a little bit more clearly with everybody switched. Okay. Okay. So this lane pushes, and we'll have about a +10 CS lead at 10 minutes. This lane pushes. It's possible that the CS lead could go in either direction, depending on how the jungle pressure plays out. But remember, Jarvan's incentivized to go top because they will still win this 2v2, depending on the state of the lane. And if Swain has the push, there's a chance that they can force 2v2s while Swain has a level advantage. And if they force that, then it forces the Gnar to get even further behind than he already would be. So Rox doesn't need to worry about that. And this lane is going to push just because it's Caitlyn, or at least when they have a few levels. They don't want to push really early because the Thresh can find something quite quickly on the Tahm Kench while he's still low. So they're going to start pushing after about wave 9. And that's going to be after both bot lanes back. I'm sure they'll both back at around wave 9, as they'll both have around 1300 gold at that point. And if it's not wave 9, then it'll be shortly after. Or no, they'll have. I'm sorry, I didn't count natural gold scaling, which means they'll have about 1200 plus 500. They'll have about 1700 gold after wave 9, so they should be incentivized for that back. Both will probably go for BF sword, boots, and 2 pinks. Now, as the state of the game tends to unfold, after Jarvan has swung top sufficiently so that Swain does not need to worry about Skarner and Gnar trying to 2v1 him, then Jarvan's going to play for the Caitlyn, the bot side. As Jarvan into Jin without proper peel for the Jin is actually, this is why I really think they should have taken Tahm Kench, because when they leave the Jarvan open here, the Jarvan has free access to the Jin, which makes it really difficult for him to position. He loses flash for free whenever Jarvan goes bot lane. And since Karma is going to have some of a push in the mid lane as well, then they're going to be able to go bot lane and siege bot with Caitlyn very free. And it's impossible for Jin to do anything when he gets dived, other than burn sums that he may or may not have. Okay. Let's see how this game plays out. First Dragon's Fire Dragon. That's actually in the favor of Rox. Since they'll have the push in mid and bot around the time that they'll be taking Fire Dragon, which is probably after first back, after wave 9, and they have high DPS and good save, then they should be able to secure that dragon pretty easily. Otherwise, Skarner can actually solo the dragon fairly early, which is something that they have to keep on watch for. Anyway, standard 5-point, both junglers start bot side, both junglers are going to converge onto the top side, just as I noted before, since that Skarner wants to try and swing that lane into Gnar's favor. And by Gnar's favor, I mean something very specific, because Gnar, when you swing this lane into Gnar's favor, it does not mean Gnar is actually going to 1v1 the Swain. Gnar actually needs to be about 650 plus gold up to 1v1 the Swain. So Skarner would have to find multiple openings. But if Skarner finds one opening in the top lane and Gnar gets first blood or something like that, then Gnar can hold the lane and manage at least a CS lead of about 5 to 10 at 10 minutes. Which is something that they really want, so that Skarner can go and play bot side while Jarvan wants to continue playing top for the early. So something to note that the Jaguars did not note here is that Jarvan's main path, he went from red to wraiths to blue straight to top, whereas Skarner opted for a full clear. And what made this particularly interesting is that Skarner actually passed through a ward that they had on his race, so Jarvan went directly for top, and it wasn't called that Jarvan doesn't plan on full clearing, as it's more beneficial for him to gank as soon as possible, especially when he's given the opportunity, such as Gnar trying to contest the push in the lane. This is really, really, really bad for Jin Air, as they need to play around this Gnar in order to secure their early game and make sure that they can have at least a split push threat, so that Rox needs to respond with more than one person in order for Jin Air to play on the other side of the map with an advantage. But if they don't have that advantage, then they don't really have much of a game to play. Anyway, Gnar lost his flash there, Swain lost flash, and Jarvan used flash. Other than it being extremely well executed tower dive, Gnar is not going to have a lot of fun. Jarvan's probably going to full clear and then go straight back to top side after he has a short duel here with Skarner. So another thing that happens when Jarvan gets this early gank is that Skarner is not allowed to control this river. Skarner trying to control this river is impossible because they have the push in, because Rox has the push in mid and the priority in mid, as Karma can move out of lane quicker. And since Jarvan was just topside, he's just gonna go smite a camp, and then now that Swain is ahead, he's going to teleport back to lane, and they just converge onto this river here. So Skarner trying to contest this river is pointless. It's better for him to well, there's two things he can do. He can go to golems and back and try and get a good back and try to make himself strong, or he can go contest vision on the bottom side. I would recommend contesting vision on the bottom side. He can get scuttle and he can place a ward on Jarvan's race, which will tell them a lot about whether or not Jarvan's going to continue pathing topside or if he's going to start pathing bot a little bit more quickly than he normally would. So here it is again. Skarner goes to contest Scuttle Crab. Karma has the push in the lane. Karma rotates first. Swain teleports into top, and then Swain roams down, and they get Skarner's flash, and it looks like they get Skarner too. And to get that, they use flash on Karma. So the two primary win conditions of Jin Air have now been shut down. Skarner will still be useful, but now with Jarvan 101, experience ahead, going to be camps ahead, and going to have the ability to invade the Skarner, especially since all of his lanes are going to be in a favorable position in about 4 minutes. So Skarner, if he gets far enough behind, he will not be able to gank any lane because they'll lose every 2v2/3v3. It should be noted that this is because this is pre-Ginsu's change, Jin is a little bit less strong. And with the Caitlyn backline, Rox have no incentive to play this game faster than they want to. If they want to farm for the next 10 minutes and only take what Jin Air gives to them, makes mistakes, that's what they can do. They don't need to feel rushed to do anything. The only thing that they want to prioritize right now is this Fire Dragon. Jarvan currently contesting vision around the Fire Dragon, and they are holding a lot of vision controlled in the bottom side, which means that Jarvan's going to be either A, invading their bot side jungle, B, going into the bottom lane trying to force a possible 3v3. If per se they conditionally engage on Tahm Kench, then they can blow up the Thresh easily. And then if per se Jarvan goes mid and gets Ryze's flash, then they can just force Dragon. The one thing that's really preventing them from dragoning right now is the fact that Ryze has flash, and they can converge onto someone really easily. And there's Ryze's flash now.
I had to.
Jarvan just constantly pressuring Skirner, wasting his time. So both initial buffs are coming up. It's about that 7 minute mark. So we should be looking at bot lane backing soon, and that would actually favor Rox, because it's going to mean that bot lane's going to get 2 pinks. They're going to place one probably here, maybe one here, and they're just going to force Dragon. Jarvan actually takes a quick path into the enemy jungle, moves onto their blue buff, and because they have the push in the bot lane and the mid lane, they just 4-man rotate into the enemy jungle. So they get blue for free, and Skarner has to move to his top side. This wastes a lot of Skarner's time, since he didn't know it was happening. Because if you look at Jin Air, they didn't have any defensive vision. If I was Jin Air right now, the first thing I would say is that we need to get pinks in our jungle. We just need to control our jungle, and we need to farm until we find openings. Because the first time that we are able to get openings if we're Jin Air is when Skarner has flash and ultimate. And trying to conserve as much EXP and camps for Skarner as possible, as well as making sure that he's safe so that he doesn't have to burn his flash defensively, will allow Jin Air to find any kind of opening, and possibly accelerate the Ryze or the Jin, which could prove to be fruitful. So Karma took the push in mid lane, and she goes into the top.
Ahora sin flash, ahora sin flash, ahora sin flash. No, mejor. Tengo flash usados. ¿Puedes pelearle? No puedo pelearle, pero puedo... Tengo hit. Uy, no, me morí.
So the problem... No! I apologize for background noise, but the problem with what happened here is that, well, Skarner doesn't have flash. They can't really duel a Swain. I don't even know if they can really 2v1 the Swain very effectively without burning summoner spells, which means that Skarner returning topside while his camps are up, especially red, rather than going bottom side and trying to accelerate one of his lanes that actually has a carry at this point in the game is really what he should be doing. And Nar should just be playing back and playing safe and letting himself get pushed in. Like, He's doing fairly well in CS, but now with Swain, oh my god, now with Swain like this, let's see, Swain is possibly 1,000 gold ahead, just about, if he is.
I'm gonna start now. You guys can fight. Alright. I'm gonna go after Saya. That's slow.
So, because Skarner went top instead of opting to go for his red and then putting pressure in mid or bot, and he really wants that red to make sure that he sticks onto people, he loses his red, he gets 4 buffed, and at this point, there's only a 2,000 gold difference, but I'd say it's pretty much GG for Jin Air. Jarvan's miles ahead. The Swain is accelerated. The Karma is accelerated. They have a winning bot, and if they go 3v3. So if Jarvan comes bot, even if Skarner comes, like there won't be much of a problem, especially since they keep priority in mid, which means Karma's always going to rotate first.
2 minutes ago.
The only thing that I find weird right now is that bot is yet to back. 9 times 2, like this Caitlyn has at least 2,600 gold right now. Well, maybe 2,400. 7. Yeah, this is really far into the game, and neither bot is backed. It seems like both want to back. But both do not want to give up the push. So because Caitlyn and Tahm Kench have priority right now with Jarvan, they want to keep pushing until Jin Air decides to give up a wave in the bottom lane, making them 1 wave of experience and 1 wave of gold ahead. And Jin Air wants to wait until they back so that they can just leave the lane, reset. Which is the best case scenario right now, because there's no way that Rox with priority would let a wave crash into their tower unless they assume that Jin backed when they really didn't.
Right now, if you guys wanna just fight them, so that hey, recuerden que acá te pueden ir, deberías irte donde van.
This is a really interesting fight. So let's watch that again. Let's go over how this happened. So Rox sets up for a gank in the mid lane. They have double pink here. It's impossible for Ryze to know if Jarvan's going to come to the side. And at this point, if you go back, okay, so if you go back far enough, you actually realize that despite Jarvan starting bot, he takes his blue first, and he does not get seen for any period of time. So before this gank in the mid lane, it is impossible for Jin Air to know where Jarvan is. They have absolutely no idea. And as you can see, This is normal by Grace. He's sticking to his pink ward. He has another pink ward in this jungle. He just wants to be as safe as possible. So Karma goes ahead and he speeds up Jarvan in. Jarvan gets Rise Flash. Jarvan decides to continue. What's nice about Jarvan deciding to continue here is that Swain is accelerated, and Swain is willing to roam into the river and risk being in a 1v2 situation because he's not afraid, because it's really hard to take this Swain down. And with Gnar being behind and having to itemize defensively, as well as the Skarner, although Skarner normally itemizes this way, they are not in a situation where they are able to take this Swain down. So Swain can immediately run into this river here. Now, Rise makes a mistake. I guess he just couldn't think quickly or something. He decides to rotate into his Skarner, which honestly is not going to help him. His best idea is to rotate completely out and Skarner not even contest this area. Skarner to make sure that he's unseen. Skarner does not want them to know that he's in this river, because if they know that he's in this river and it's likely that they have a ward in this bush, then they'll just collapse Swain on top of him, and then he's forced to burn Splash, and that's exactly what happens. Rise does manage to get out of this situation because they converge onto Skarner. It's not really necessary for them to... It's not necessary for Rox to try and overcommit or even burn Swain Flash in trying to get a kill here, because Rise is going to back anyway, and then if they get damage or summoners off of these two, then it's just beneficial for them to leave it that way. And then when their summoners come up, we just used Jarvan Summoner. When Karma summoners come up, then they have a window in the mid lane, and if you get Gnar Flash here, then Swain will have a full 5-minute window to abuse the flash versus no flash in a matchup that he already wins 1v1. Rox decide to go for the Rift Herald. Should be free because they just took all of that pressure on top side. Jin Air has no vision, and even if they did have vision, they are not able to contest. Rox is smart. They are not letting Jin Air back. So let's just take a note about this bottom lane for a second. Both carries have about 120 CS. That's about 2,500 gold. And with natural gold up to this point, both carries are definitely holding more than 3,200, possibly 3,500 gold right now. Which means that neither of them are ready for this fire dragon, but the longer they wait, the more Caitlyn will be ahead of this Jhin, just because Caitlyn one item is going to be a lot stronger than Jhin one item. And then they can take this dragon for free, and they already have the priority in mid lane. Jag try to come in for a quick steal on the Rift Herald. They are unsuccessful. And now Jarvan has Rift Herald for a first blood tower. Jin Air decided to back, and Rox back as well. You can see that we just spent a lot of gold, 2,600 plus, that's 30, that 35... 50 or 3,600. That's how much gold that Caitlyn just spent, which means Jhin has spent about the same. That's 3,200, 3,500, about 3,800. The only benefit here is that Caitlyn manages to buy pinks. Teddy prioritizes his cloth armor over possible pinks, which I find a little confusing. It's possible that he really needs that. Okay. With the level 9 power spike of Gnar, reminder that the level 9 power spike is actually one of the strongest in the game, because it's when you max out your first ability. And in this case, it's a Gnar, which means it's going to be on as low cooldown as it possibly can, and he can spam it. And because he can spam it, they can win this 2v2 because they have enough CC. So this was one of the only windows that they had in the game to reset this top lane in Gnar's favor, and they took advantage of it. So that was very well done by Jin Air. The only thing that they really need to do now is attempt to make something happen in the bottom lane so that they can take control of this fire dragon. If Jin Air can get Fire Dragon, I'd say that Jin Air has a pretty good chance of winning, since Fire Dragon is more beneficial on the Rox team comp. But it's also extremely beneficial on the Jin Air team comp. But if they deny this Fire Dragon, they'll be at a better stance for dueling later in the game. Rox make the jump on the Fire Dragon as fast as possible. They go ahead and they push bottom lane. Bottom lane's rotating up. Fire Dragon's at 2500 HP, and Rise and Skarner are here. It looks like this is going to be a 4v4. Swain is standing back in his lane so that he can teleport. Gnar is also in position to teleport. It looks like it's going to go down to a 50-50 smite here, but Jarvan decides to ult onto the Skarner and the Rise, and they force the fight that way. And what was particularly nice about that is that Jarvan was able to all in, and Tahm Kench was able to save him, which means they were able to make a successful engage and make a successful disengage, allowing for the carries enough time to put out the damage that was needed for this fight, which secures them Fire Dragon and 2 kills. Caitlyn does die, and Rock's bottom lane loses all their sums, but Jin Air pretty much lose everything here. I mean, they lose Fire Dragon, they lose First Blood Tower. Fire Dragon right now is worth about 1500 gold in stats. First Blood Tower is worth about 1500 gold, not exactly. And they're already ahead, 4 kills and First Blood, so that's going to be another 1200, 1300 gold, not counting any kind of assist gold. So they're really looking like they're in a strong spot at about 4,000 gold. So if they play this game cleanly, they can win it. And with the mid tower down, this is going to destroy Skarner from being able to contest his Wraith, and it's actually going to allow Rox to start invading the bottom side and putting a lot of pressure on the bottom side, which they can do for free because there's no Rift Herald on the table. They don't need to worry about giving that up. So Caitlyn getting this bottom lane tower is going to be the next thing that's happened, and Karma's just going to push mid and rotate into the bot. What was also nice about this play is that Swain, before teleporting, was able to get the lane in a spot where it's going to slow push. So while all of this is happening, this slow push is going to go into the top lane. Jin Air has no teleport to respond to it, which means they're going to lose about 3 waves to tower. And losing 3 waves when you're already this far behind is detrimental. Now, just an analysis of that decision that Jin Air had made. If they per se get this Fire Dragon and maybe trade 1-1, because the value of that Fire Dragon is about 1500 gold and it's going to scale to about 4000 gold, if they were to secure it with this Gnar teleport, losing those 3 waves in top lane won't necessarily be a problem, because those 3 waves are about 350 gold and about 0.5 level of experience. So the risk reward here was that if they if they get it, they have a very good chance of winning the game, and if they don't get it, they aren't losing too much, but it's still losing a lot. But the reward was, it outweighed what they were going to lose by making that decision in the first place by so much that it was the correct decision for them to make, trying to contest that fire dragon. Although they needed to play it in the sense where they wanted to contest a 50-50 smite. Jin at this point in the game is not going to do that much damage with his ult, and is getting out damaged by the Caitlyn, so there's no reason for them to fight this fight, especially with Ryze behind too. They just can't put out enough DPS to be able to contest objectives. They want to take every 50-50 they can. Okay, so they push mid, they rotate bot into this bot tower, they get 50% bot health. The enemy ends up rotating mid, and they're just gonna run it back. The only thing that might change right now is that Jarvan may go topside and give Karma this blue buff. Actually, we're seeing a full rotation into the mid lane onto the Ryze. Pretty unsuccessful. Ryze is pretty difficult to pin down. If that rotation was onto Jin, they definitely would have killed him, but they decided to put it in the mid lane anyway. Not having the Ryze ult does make it a little bit more viable for them to push the bottom lane, as if they see Ryze in any of their vision, then they know that he has to walk all the way to bot, that they have time, they don't need to respond to his ultimate. Anyway, Jarvan going topside for the blue buff. It looks like Karma is actually not going to come get this. I find that really interesting, because putting that blue buff on the Karma makes her a siege cannon, especially in this part of the game. So sieging bot would be absolutely free with Karma with blue buff. But remember, I said in the beginning of this game, Rox have no reason to play this game fast. They have no reason to rush the game and possibly commit an error. Especially now with this fire dragon on their tail, they have no reason to go faster than they want to. If they want to play around power spikes, they can play around only power spikes. If they want to play around just waiting for the enemy to make a mistake or overcommit, then that's what they can do. They don't need to force anything because they're gonna win naturally. Again, I apologize for the background noise. I tried to set up OBS so that it could there was a noise gate, but it didn't match with the decibel point where I needed it so that it would hear my voice. Okay, Skarner has like nothing. Karma has 2 items, and she's got 30%, possibly 40% CDR. I do not know what her runes are. And she does have unsealed spellbook. It could be 45%. So Karma's at a really strong point right now. So they're just gonna follow her around. Karma went ahead and got the push in mid lane. She doesn't need to tend to that, but she's gonna go ahead and tend to it anyway, and then immediately rotate into the bot. And remember, they have full control of the river, so this is 100% safe for her. Or she's going to go to the top side. It looks like, okay, so this is a mix-up. Instead of taking the most beneficial play, which would be go bottom lane, which has the opportunity of killing the enemy bottom lane and getting bottom tower, possible, and then bot tower. This is guaranteed. Instead of doing this play, which is the highest payoff, payoff function. Because it's the highest payoff, it's generally what teams consider the best play. Instead, they go for a mix-up, which means that it is a play that has a payoff, a good payoff, and because it has a good payoff, they are going to decide to do it anyway. But what's more interesting is that it's called a mix-up because it's more unexpected. It's instead of them choosing the best play, they choose a play that is not so good, but can still provide them with a good payoff. So they decide to rotate Karma into the top lane, which is unexpected, and it looks like they're going to have success in this play. They're either going to get Gnar's flash, or they're going to kill Gnar and get the tower. They didn't commit as hard as they thought they would. Remember, again, Rox don't want to play too fast, so I guess they were only going to take Gnar if Gnar wanted to contest this turret, but he decided to give the turret up, so they just took it for free. But now that they have 2 outers down, the third outer is essentially free. And they're going to want to take this outer before they go ahead and take this next dragon. Assuming that they want to prioritize that dragon. It's possible that because they're so far ahead, they may just try and force this Baron. And Jin Air has 2 options if they decide to force this Baron. They can go for the 50-50, which is going to be extremely difficult because they have Caitlyn, Tahm Kench, and a Jarvan, and they're gonna leave Karma to zone and Swain to zone. Which may make the 50-50 play impossible. And then Jin Air, what would they do? They would go bottom lane, they would get bottom lane tower, and they would go get this dragon. Rox, now that they have 2 outer towers, they have the entire control of the enemy red side jungle, which makes it even more difficult for Jin Air to contest that Baron, which is what they may go for. Instead, Rox go ahead and they make the safer play. Instead of contesting the vision in the top side and controlling it until Baron spawns in the next 20 seconds, they go ahead and they go bottom side and take this dragon for free. They don't want to leave anything for Jin Air. Jin Air looks like they're teleporting in here, but this is not a good decision for them. So what's interesting about Jin Air teleporting into this play here is that the payoff is almost null. Because the payoff is almost null, like there's no way they're going to get that water dragon. The water dragon isn't really that worth it, and they can't win the 5v5 in any situation in the current point because they're down about 6,000 gold in stats if you count the fire dragon. I don't know why they did that. They lost Jhin summoners on that. They lost Thresh summoner on that. They lost Skarner Flash. They can't use Skarner Flash aggressively. They can't use Skarner Flash to contest the 50-50 Baron. Jin Air just throws the entire game here. There's nothing for them to do. And one of them die. At this point, Rox can go straight to Baron, or they can just go take bottom tower, reset, and then go to Baron. One or the other works fine. And it looks like they're going to opt for this bottom lane tower. It's possible that they're getting pretty close to any extra power spikes that they may want right now. Swain probably wants his next item, and Caitlyn wants her next item. So they just want this tower so that they can finish their item and get a few extra pink wards, so that they can continue to control the map. I apologize. I didn't really Skarner burned his flash aggressively right there, but Tahm Kench into Skarner again, the easiest response. I wouldn't be surprised if this game ended in 5 minutes. All it takes is for Rox to force Baron. They have a 2-item Caitlyn, a Karma with almost 3rd item in Ardent, a J4 who's so far ahead that he can build Black Cleaver 2nd item, and a Swain who's 4-1. Force Baron, they can just force down 2 lanes at a time, or they can 1-3-1. Because of the state of the game, Swain can 1v1 the Gnar. Karma can keep pressure against the Ryze. I don't know if she can 1v1 the Ryze. It would really depend on how that was played out. And the 3v3 in the mid lane that would be left, Skarner, and then the bottom lane for Jin, then there wouldn't really be anything for Jin Air to do. So, instead of forcing Baron, they go ahead and they decide to siege this top lane tower. It seems like they just want to play the game as easily as they possibly can. They don't want to give Jin Air any opening. I don't think it would really be easy for Jin Air to contest this Baron because they wasted Skarner Flash, but it's possible Rox missed that or something. Because if they just take red plant, Skarner has no access to the Baron other than Ryze ult, and if Ryze ults him in, Rox is either gonna finish Baron or just stop hitting Baron and then just kill Skarner. Even so, Rox is so far ahead they can just siege every lane at a time, or every lane one at a time. So they go ahead and they do that. Jin's finally 2 items, so he's finally online. Ryze is finally online, and Gnar has like some kind of pressure, but not really strong at this point.
I'm going for Ryze. Okay.
At this point, they're about 10k gold ahead.
Okay,
Since they don't have any kind of win condition in the 5v5, especially being down a fire dragon, there's really nothing for Jin Air to do here. The only thing they can really look for is trying to kill Swain in the split and then trying to force a 5v4. But at this point, that's still extremely difficult. If we were about 4,000 gold behind, I would find it realistic. But at 8,000 plus a fire dragon, which could be giving anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000 gold in stats right now, I find it almost impossible. Rox go ahead and they leave Swain in the bottom lane. They know that Swain can 1v1 any single person on the enemy team, so they have to send multiple people to Swain. So if they send multiple people to Swain, then Rox just forces Baron. Swain decides to rotate into the team. They rotate to the mid tower. It feels like Rox is just playing like too safe. Like this can hurt your team if you play too safe. Because when you have a lead like this and you wanna guarantee yourself the game, you might as well just force the play that you know is correct, and that would be the Baron play. While Skarner didn't have flash. Now Skarner has flash, so it's too late to make that play. So they go ahead and they break open mid tower. In exchange for Jarvan, which I guess is okay. Which they can 5v5 easy, so they can force that mid inhibitor, and then Baron's even easier than it was before. However, it's still a little odd coming from Rox.
This is really bad idea. Careful, run. We can't do this until Darius comes. Okay, what?
If in any case Rox don't do anything proactive for the next 10 minutes, Jin Air have some kind of glimmer of hope, but I don't even know if this video is 10 minutes longer.
Oh my fucking.
Yeah, Rox play this safer than they ever could.
Yo le paré el backdoor, le paré el backdoor. Estoy persiguiendo.
They don't even touch Baron.
Estoy aquí con Or. Saya acaba de voltear. Saya acaba de voltear. Voy por Saya, Saya es inútil, le esnoceo. Ok, estoy yo también. Vení. Sigo. Creo que le mata con los hits, ¿no? Uy, quedó de uno batazo. Vamos a eso.
I don't really understand why Rox is just trying to force without Baron when Baron is free. I feel like it's possible Rox like does not understand how ahead they are. I mean, like, it's true, like, they can force these turrets. It's just, like, it's more risky to force this turret than it is to just take the Baron while Skarner has no flash. And this is 8.5. Like, Baron is a lot stronger than it used to be. Like, they could have gotten Baron 5 minutes ago when Skarner didn't have flash, and they could have ended the game at 26 minutes. But they just don't. It's also, like, really weird because for this entire duration, Jarvan has been ahead on levels, which means his smite is larger by a significant portion. I think there was a point where he was ahead 2 levels. So really, it's not even a 50-50 smite at that point, and when Skarner doesn't have flash, it's never even close to that. Like, the only pathway that's actually safe for Jin Air to get into this Baron is Thresh Hook into Lantern, and maybe Skarner will be able to smite. But again, this is easily readable. It's really slow. You know, if Thresh hooks the Baron when it has 2000 HP, everyone stops hitting Baron. Everybody waits for Thresh Hook to decay. Skarner still doesn't have flash. Skarner can't smite it because he can't get in. But if he goes in, he dies. Like, there's no pathway that's safe for Jin Air, unless Rox makes a critical error. Like, are they afraid of making a critical error? And what's even weirder is that if they lost Baron right now, they'd still win the game. Like, Jin Air can't do anything with this Baron. Like, they still win. So there's no negative effects of them losing Baron, other than the game getting slightly harder because maybe they have to force a little harder in order to win fights. Otherwise, the macro here is very proper. Other than completely ignoring the Baron, it's very properly done. It's possible they could end here if Jin Air decides to make a last stand. Jin Air, because they've lost 2 inhibitors, has to do something here, or losing 3 inhibitors just loses the game. There's no way to do anything after that. So I'm surprised that they haven't like tried to fight. It's possible that after Ryze heals here, he's going to all Ryze ult in. No, they don't. Rox know they can force.
Uy, what the fuck se fue dormido. Cuidado, nos va a resetear, salgamos. ¿Qué se banea en esto?
Uy, Elgin, banea Elgin.
I don't understand why Jin Air is doing nothing here. Like, it doesn't make any sense that, like, if you're at this point in the game and you've already given 3 inhibitors, like, you've lost. Like, if you fought over this inhibitor and say Rox fucks up, like, you have a chance. But leaving that third inhibitor and then not fighting at all for your Nexus, like, this is pretty open mid. And it's kind of disappointing to see that. So now that it's actually the end, let me just say something. If Jin Air goes ahead and they fight over every inhibitor that they gave away for free, and they trade, I don't know, 2 for 3. So like 3 of them die, but like Jin and Rise and Gnar are alive or something, and they kill like Caitlyn or Swain or just like any 2 of these members, like it becomes incredibly difficult for them to continue sieging, which means that they have to wait for the death timer, they have to full reset, everybody's got to buy items, everybody's got to get together, they go reset their vision, and then they go back. What that does is that gives Jin Air 3 minutes to scale. Or maybe not 3 minutes, but at least 2 minutes to scale. And every 2 minutes that they can increment on top of each other for them to stay longer in this game, the more likely it is for Rox to make a critical error and for them to be able to capitalize on it and close this gold lead. So Jin Air really need to accept that if they're behind this far, they need to do something, because doing nothing is just going to lose the game anyway. Whereas doing something, having a 1% over a 0% is still a beneficial idea. Is it going to be your best idea? I mean, you want to obviously look for that, that 10%, that 20%, whatever the play that you find is going to be the best for you. You want to take advantage of it every time, but doing anything it would help them win this game. All right, that's game 1. Last week of the regular split in Korea. Pretty interesting to see such passiveness, such inability to control and know when you have a confirmed situation, because there was a lot more that could have been done here by both teams. Thank you.